Thomson Edward Goring. It is nice to make all of your acquaintance. And I do have to say right at the beginning, I am Thomson, Thomson. There is no P in my first name. My first name was my mother's last name, Jane Eliza Thomson. And my father, who was Edward Goring, owned a pharmacy in Wappingers Falls with a stationery store as well. And they had 4 children. I was the oldest, and then Maria came, and then the twins, Prescott and Ada Mary. Now, it's no secret that Ada Mary was my favorite. She was so tiny and so cute, and she was a little angel. And unfortunately, she became a true angel at the age of 7 after an illness. And you know, families grieve the loss of a child, but my mother was never the same. It was very, very sad. But at the age of 25, I went to one of the local church socials, and I met the love of my life, Mary Myers. I knew we were going to get married the moment I set eyes on her. She wasn't too sure, it took her a little time, but once we got together, it was wonderful. We had 3 children, Maya, Maud, Ada, and Ethel. And sadly, Mary was only with me for 9 of our married years. She also got sick, passed away. But I had my work to dive into, and I was very happy about that because I was just off, very, very off at that time. I worked at a brand new company called the Sweet-Orr Company, which I'm sure you are aware of, made overalls for men. Now, James Orr and Clinton and Clayton Sweet owned this company, and I started literally at the bottom. I was a runner. So picture a full warehouse room full of sewing machines with people sewing at each one of them. And if someone needed something, they gave the signal, I would run over, they would tell me what they needed, I would run and get it, I would run back, and they would have what they needed to keep working. It was a very efficient system, and I stayed in wonderful shape. I'll tell you that, that's for sure. I became a floor supervisor after being a runner. Then I became a manager. And when I retired from Sweet-Orr, I was a vice president of that company. And I was very, very happy to spend my entire career with Sweet-Orr. And one of my claims to fame there was we organized a contract with the workers, a collective bargaining agreement, we called it at that time. And we organized it, we implemented it, and there was never a strike at Sweet-Orr. So being a local Wappingers person, I was involved in a lot of civic organizations, a lot of business organizations, but my passion, if you really wanted to find me on an off-work hour, I would be riding my bike. I would be riding or I would be racing. We had the Wappingers Falls Bike Club, which raced all across the state. And you know, back then, there was a real racing community. It was a community of people who had great rivalries, and no one ever wanted to lose in their own hometown. Now, we had a race that people came to from all over the state on Decoration Day, which you call Memorial Day. And so, what Wappingers would do is have a parade, and then they'd have the bike race. So my friend Ed Cashin and I were out training for this race. And it was a nice day, a lot like today. So we were just about passing Patrick Kennedy's American Hotel when this big, ferocious yellow dog came out and clenched his fangs right into Ed's left leg. It was horrible. Ed was screaming. I didn't know what to do. I was behind him. There was no way I could fight this dog off. And then the dog let go. and we thought, oh, maybe this is over. No, he set his sights on me, and he came and he sunk his teeth into my left leg, and I could not shake this beast. He was gnawing and gnawing, and he was running and running. He was incredibly fast, and I just kept trying to pedal harder, but that was making more and more mess of my leg. And then he let go. And for a moment, I just was in peace. And then he lunged. And what Ed said was, he lunged at my back wheel, he chomped into the wheel, took 4 spokes with him, and all 3 of us, the bike, the dog, and myself, went flying 8 to 10 feet, and I went head first right into a rock. So, the dog then sort of left and went under a beer cart, and Ed got a couple of guys and helped me get over to Dr. George Woods. Dr. Woods gave me an elixir for the pain, and he cleaned up my head, cleaned up my leg, and said, you know, come back in a week, go home, rest, don't do anything, and we'll talk about this. I went home. 3 days later, the pain had radiated up into my hip. I didn't have the hip pain immediately, but I was really finding it hard to walk. I definitely couldn't ride my bike. So I went back to Dr. Wood. Dr. Wood said, it's probably an infection. Go away in a week, no worries. So I said, okay, fine. So I went over to Mr. Kennedy's, expecting to talk about reparations. Maybe he could help me out and reimburse me for my doctor bills. Absolutely not. He looked me in the eye and he said, I do not have a dog. I haven't had a dog for years. This is not my concern. So I ran into a brick wall. I didn't know what to do. I talked to some friends. I had to sue. So I filed a lawsuit. Judge Barnard oversaw the lawsuit, and you would have thought it was the trial of the century. The first day, the courtroom was full of people. People came from all over the state, from the bike clubs. Wappingers Falls was there in strength, and Mr. Kennedy got up and followed by his wife and said they absolutely have not owned a dog in years. It was not their dog. They were not responsible, and that was that. 4 doctors, including Dr. Wood, who had looked at my leg, came up and said, you know, yes, he's in a little pain now, but eventually he'll be okay. This is not a lifelong injury. And then there were the witnesses from both sides of the aisle. There were people who got up and said, I saw him running the other day. I saw him riding his bike. He looks fine. He's just milking this. And then the other side said, no, the man can't walk. A couple of people from my company said he's having trouble standing during the day. He can't stand long, he can't sit long. So it was back and forth until my attorney found the son-in-law of Mr. Kennedy. And the son-in-law came up and said, it was my dog. And the reason that it was at Mr. Kennedy's is because Mr. Kennedy requested it to guard the chicken coop and his wood pile as well. So he wanted the dog for security, but was demanding that it was not his dog. So we finally adjourned and waited for Judge Barnard, and he came back after 2 days, and he awarded me $500, which did help a lot with the doctor's payments. But he said, you know, according to the doctors and according to him, this was not going to be a lifelong issue. Unfortunately, it was. It got worse and worse every year. I found it harder and harder to do my job because by that time I was a vice president and I was traveling a lot, and traveling on this leg was very, very difficult. And the worst part was I couldn't bike race anymore. I couldn't even really stay on a bike for that long either. So it was very sad. But luckily, I did find the second love of my life, and that was Martha Nelson, who made the last chapter of my life very enjoyable, and she kept things light, and I was very, very happy for her. And in 1936, I died at the ripe old age of 83. Thank you very much for listening.